AMA request: someone who intentionally murdered someone, not self-defense. 1. Obviously, why did you do it? 2. How did you do it? 3. What were the negative/positive consequences? 4. Do you have guilt? If so, how do you cope? 5. What was the punishment, assuming you were tried and convicted? I don't have proof, but I was incarcerated between 1999 and 2005 for murder. I killed my girlfriend's rapist. I was released 6 years into my 35-year sentence as my lawyer was able to convince a judge that I was not responsible for my actions because I was in a rage-induced, overly emotional state. My girlfriend, would-be wife, committed suicide because she couldn't bear the shame, and she was plagued with nightmares every single night. Since she committed suicide, she was unable to testify against him, and he was released due to lack of evidence. The rape wasn't reported until days after it occurred, so there was no DNA against him and he had an alibi. I learned the morning following the funeral that he was released. He was a free man, and the love of my life was dead. I was dead. At that point, I didn't care if I got the needle, I was gonna make sure he was dead too. It wasn't hard to find him. I won't go into detail how. I'd been convicted of my crime, so I don't have to worry about sharing details unless I was explicitly told otherwise. That said, I confronted him, and his smug smile that he gave me while he said, "Go ahead, touch me," threw me over the edge. I'm 5 feet 10 inches, 250 pounds. Wasn't all that built at the time, but rage did most of the work. One fine hook to his head and he was down on the ground. I kicked him in his head repeatedly, stomped on his groin, and stomped his stomach until he vomited blood, and eventually stopped moving. I stood there staring at his lifeless body for what felt like an eternity before I ran off. This was around 10 p.m., so there wasn't anyone in the streets driving by to see. Went home, cried myself to sleep, and woke up at the crack of dawn to the police banging down my door, and that was it. Guilt? Guilt isn't the word, more like regret. 6 years of my life I won't get back, but I look back on my former self and sometimes I get the feeling as if I should pat myself on my back. Originally, I was sentenced to 35 years after pleading not guilty. I was hoping for the needle at the time, but they didn't give it to me. I barely spoke at my trial. I accepted it all, and willingly gave up my life to go to prison. Every night I was dreaming of either her, or replaying the killing of her rapist. Eventually the doc at the prison recommended me for psych evaluation and I ended up being forced, nothing's voluntary in prison, to see a shrink. The shrink concluded that I acted out of pure rage, since so much time was lost during that day, from dusk to dawn, felt like a total of 1 hour. A few other details here and there that I don't feel like sharing ended up being my ticket. Fast forward a year, and a judge ended up agreeing, and just like that, I was out on grounds of temporary insanity. I was given another shot, and here I am. I was an IT professional before this all went down in 1998. Couldn't find a job after getting out, currently working as an auto mechanic, and I've found it's incredibly therapeutic. Takes my mind off of things. I go to a shrink twice a week and have been since I got out in September of 2005. I probably sound like a Stonewall writing all this, but you should see the pool of tears on my table right now. I'm off today, and found myself bored, so I replied to your thread. Hope this answers your questions. I've never made an AMA before and I made this throwaway specifically for replying to this thread. 1. He raped my sister and nearly killed her. 2. I beat the living shit out of him, yet he didn't die directly, he killed himself after waking up from his coma and realizing what I've done to him. 3. I broke a few fingers and had nasty scars from his broken teeth and bones. 4. Obviously it was something I didn't think trough, otherwise there wouldn't have been any witnesses. 5. Luckily I was underage and I didn't kill him directly, anyhow I was sentenced to 5 years in juvenile prison, but got released after 3 due to good behavior. 1. Because he raped my sister. 2. Took a baseball bat to his legs, his crotch, then his head. 3. Wasn't actually trying to kill him. Shrugs, but he died anyway. 4. Not in the least. I did what I did, I know why I did it, and as far as I'm concerned, he deserved it. 5. Well, I was 15 at the time, the evidence against him for the rape was overwhelming. Plead guilty. Judge's sentence was a year of state-mandated therapy. I was already seeing a shrink for anger anyway. No jail, no juvie, just therapy that my mother of 5 no longer had to pay for. Win-win. We had a guy come into your crime and deviance class in university once. The story was he somehow got paranoid his buddy was stealing money from him, and so he and another friend took him hunting and accidentally shot him. He spent 25 years in jail, Canada by the way, and found out that the friend he killed never stole money from him once. He gave us some huge sob story about how hard it was to realize his mistake and how he has dedicated himself to getting forgiveness from the family and how he does so and so community work and turned his life around blah blah blah. The whole time I looked at him like a piece of fucking shit, a waste of fucking air and a complete fucking loser. I didn't do it because everyone in the class bought his sob story, but I really wanted to get up at the end and say the man you killed should be at home with his family right now, and you 6 feet under. 1. I was working undercover as IDF soldier in Gaza. Our job was to pinpoint the most wanted of the most wanted and kill them. 2. Short range, no one was further than 3 feet away when I pulled the trigger. We would blend in and surprise them, sometime in their sleep. But for the most part we would intercept them just before they acted against us. 3. We prevented many terrorist actions against Israeli civilians and military targets. 4. Negative would be PTSD and such. I just suppress my memories and keep moving on. 5. We were operating under the Israeli government, but I know PLO at the time asked for our heads or a trial, never happened. I arrived at my ex-wife's condo one night and found Ron Goldman standing over my dead ex-wife. As soon as he saw me he charged at me with a knife. I managed to get the knife from him and stab him 3 times. There were negative consequences of course. I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I could have just told the truth, but I was afraid nobody would believe me. Admitting to murder in self-defense is still admitting to murder, especially since I had managed to take the knife away from him. He was technically not a threat at that point, which would hurt my self-defense plea. I only feel guilty that I hadn't arrived sooner. Maybe Nicole would have been alright. I denied being there. They tried to pin both murders on me, which made me sick. I would never do that to Nicole. We had our differences, but I still considered her family. I was found not guilty in the end. That's all for today, folks. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you're new here make sure to turn on the notification bell. We will be posting new videos every day.